Hey, what's going on, everybody? Boilon here, and in today's video, I want to kind of let you guys know a little bit about something that I learned after reading the blog post. There's something in there, I think, that indicates to us a little bit more about some of the characters that you'll be needing to use for the upcoming War Scourge 3. And I think it's funny when I say this, because as of recording this video, like, we don't even have the famine event, like, in the events tab. Like, we're talking about the third Horseman before we even talk about the second. But anyways, we're gonna get to exactly what I mean, because you're probably thinking I'm a little bit crazy. So if you're ready to go, let's boil it down. And we got to start with where it all began, or where it started so far. And this was the entry in the blog post, which happened after I recorded my blog video already, and it let us know that Hero as Guardians are going to be one of the three teams for the third Horseman War, who very likely is an Alliance War Horseman character, so that is what it is there. I think part of it's because the sales for Mighty Thor probably was not very good, and so when they made this announcement, I think there was still 1 day left on her offers, so this gave people a chance, I guess, to spend more money, knowing that we would need them for the upcoming event. But here's what's interesting. And when you actually look at this a bit closer, maybe not everyone thought about this, but I thought about this, like, after I read this. Okay, so we know that Hero as Guardians are a thing, and that you're going to need them. But here's what's interesting about this as a required trait. Okay, and this is where maybe the light bulbs go off, is that Hero as Guardian is actually 2 tags. It's Hero and as Guardian. And why is that important? And so for that, we have to go back into the game, and we need to go into the roster. So what happens when you go into the roster and you click on as Guardian, and you click on Hero. So it filters out the villains. And why is this important? Because we know that these 5 specifically are going to be the Hero as Guardians. But for any of the other traits that are added to this, it also has to contain Hero. Which means that none of the characters that are going to be usable in this event are going to be villains. Because immediately, when they filter it down for the event, it has to contain these traits. So it has to contain Hero, it has to contain Asgardian, it has to contain whatever the 2 other traits are going to be. But then it means that those characters have to be heroes, because it has to fulfill all of the requirements that are in there as the traits. Which means by default, it filters out every single villain in the game. Okay? So that filters a good 40% of the roster out, that they're not going to be in the game. That they're not going to be used in the Scourge event. And so that kind of helps us a little bit, because then I can just take Asgardian off, and then I can just see what's available on the heroes, what kind of traits are available. And so they have to be hero characters. And then we have to look at some of the teams. If we're thinking from an Inhumans perspective, like Scourge number 2 with Famine, that the third team most likely is going to be some sort of quasi... I don't want to say reworked, but like some additional team, just like Inhumans they weren't reworked. They were just sort of like thrown in there to be able to be added in, like with Black Bolt and Yo-Yo, that kind of thing. So the second team most likely is going to be a new team that we're going to get. But the third team, which I'm talking about here, is most likely going to be an existing set of characters. And so that's what we're going to do today, is we're going to break that down. Who could it possibly be? And I want to think about age. The age of a character is kind of important. Inhumans were a pretty old team. Like, we're using them in Famine, and yet they're like, what, 2 years, I think, old. They were like early 2020, if I'm not mistaken. So we could hypothetically have characters that are up to like 2 years old, that are in this Team 3 situation. And so I have this spreadsheet here. We're going to go through it from the bottom, and who I think are likely and not likely. And we're going to post them here. And here's where I want to start. And we're going to start from the bottom, because I want to kind of start eliminating things that I think might not be a thing. She-Hulk and Fantastic Four. She-Hulk doesn't really have a Fantastic Four trait, for one thing. So I don't think that she's going to be on this list. just to be clear about that one. I don't think that S.H.I.E.L.D. is going to be on this. There's too many people. Guardians of the Galaxy, I think there's too many, but I'm not going to rule them out. I'm not going to rule Guardians out, so I don't really know where to put them, because there's a lot of Guardians characters, which also includes Gamora, who is a strong standalone character, so I know I don't have a third category. Maybe I should have made a third category. You know what? Let's stick... It could be. Maybe I should change this from likely to, like, could be. Let's call this could be and not likely. So I'm not saying the Guardians are likely, but it could be. Yeah, they they could be the second team if they get a rework. Actually, they could be a new team like A-Force was, right? Who knows? But as far as a third team, they could be. But who's not likely? I don't think S.H.I.E.L.D. is likely. There's too many characters. I just don't think that's going to happen. There's going to be minions in there. I don't think they're going to do that. Iron Man now associated with power armor. So would power armor be on there? I don't know. They're pretty old, but why would they throw them in there? Like, even as an Inhuman sort of level substitute, I don't think they're good enough. So I'm actually going to put power armor over here in the not likely category. There is OG Falcon who might have some value, but I don't know. Now, I've heard that there's some rumors with regards to the War character that there could be some sort of rework to... Was it Iron Man or Red Hulk? Or I don't know what the current rumors are for the War character is. But, you know, and maybe that means that Power Armor is even less likely as a third team here. Let's talk about Magic and the Uncanny X-Men. So, is that a likely third choice? They're all heroes, right? So that's fine. They qualify. Maybe. Do they want to go back to that? And what's not going to happen, we know, is not going to be Ravagers. It's not going to be Ravagers because they're all villains except for T'Challa. And so Ravagers is not going to be on this. Like, it's even less likely than these two. It's like somewhere over here, like impossible. Ravagers, Uncanny X-Men. It may be. They're all heroes, right? So it could be, but it would have to be specific to Uncanny. And what I do want to say is that Uncanny also includes a Wolverine and Beast. And so for that reason, I don't know, and it has a lot of characters. They have some pretty good ones, actually. And so Uncanny just doesn't cover the ones that are being used now, like Magic, but it also includes Wolverine and Beast. So I don't know how likely that is. I'm actually in the middle about that personally, but I'm going to throw it up here anyways as a possible choice. It's not going to be A-Force. They're already in use, so no Nico. Hawkeye, I don't think so. Once again, he kind of gets covered by the S.H.I.E.L.D. Avengers. I don't think Wave 1 is really going to be a thing. X-Force... This would be completely useless, by the way, X-Force would be, because they're a war team, and they're so old and shit that I don't think it's going to make the cut. But Pimtech, also not making the cut because it's two villain characters, so Pimtech, not going to happen. I'll list them anyways, but definitely not happening because they have villain characters. Wakandans, now this is a bit of an interesting one, because Wakandans have Killmonger. He's a villain. So if they have Wakandans on here, that means that they're asking you to use 4 Wakandans and not 5. Is this possible? Maybe. But I think it would be really weird to not have your like main damage character, which is Killmonger, and I don't know if they'll be all that great without him. And so I'm going to put them in the not likely category as well, although I won't rule out the fact that they could actually force you into a 4-man Wakandan. If so, actually, I'm not mad, because Shuri would be in there, and I could probably just take Shuri by herself and just throw her into somewhere else. So, not mad about that if it happens, but I just don't think it's super likely because it contains a villain. Other ones on the list, again, we talked about Power Armor. I don't think Fantastic Four is happening. Another 4-person hero team, but super old. I think this is maybe... And a war team. I think they would just be too trash, whereas Inhumans were never really a war team. They were a kind of a general team, and so they did okay in different game modes, and you know, that was the thing. Power Armor, again, a war team. Pimtech, we talked about this already. Wakandans, Wave 1, not happening. So a lot of this not happening, and this is where we get to the next one. Shadowland. So Shadowland has one villain character with Elektra, and I kind of want to lump this in with Wakandan, that I'm not sure if this is going to happen, but this could be really interesting because Shadowland is a war team. However, they're semi-functional because I think that they're actually not terrible. Night Nurse is actually a pretty good rework, and this is a somewhat newer team. It's like a year and a half old, I think, at this point, so there might be something there. But I don't want to put them in the could be category. Actually, you know what? Actually, I might. Because of their age, I might put them in the could be category. I don't know how likely this is because, again, their 5th member is a villain. But Scopely might say, hey, you know, here's like 4 characters, even though it's not the full team. Night Nurse I would use standalone. She's not a terrible character, actually. And she's a healer, for what it's worth. I do have Night Nurse built up quite high. We have Inhumans. I don't think this is going to trigger again. Very unlikely. Uncanny, Guardians. We've already talked about some of these already. Shadowlands again with White Tiger up here. We have X Factor. So, again, X Factor is a 4-man team. We're talking about a lot of possible 4-man teams here. They haven't been chosen yet for anything. I think they're more likely. X Factor is probably more likely than X-Force, but I'll put them in the could-be category because they haven't been chosen. They're probably a better choice than X-Force, but they're still 4-man at the end of the day. So if the War Horseman is a 5th X Factor member, that completely eliminates this. But you know, there's a lot of suggestion that it's going to be a brand new team, so it is what it is there. But I'll entertain this. Otherwise, you know, Heimdall's Heroes Guardian, we have X-Force, X Factor, Heroes for Hire. Now, this is a 5-man team. So you know what? I'm actually going to drag these down because I think that as far as like what could be, Heroes for Hire I think actually has a larger chance. They're a 5-man hero team. And now they suck outside of War Defense, but Shang-Chi's really good. So as far as a standalone character, if Heroes for Hire was the 3rd team, I also wouldn't be too mad because Shang-Chi is an incredibly powerful character. So, you know, there is that. I think that these two so far, the Guardians and the Heroes, Guardians has a lot of character choices, so I'm not entirely sure here. But as far as what's available for hero-type characters, I think these are probably the most likely so far. Guardians and Heroes for Hire, just as I go through my roster from bottom to the top. But let's talk about A-Force again, not happening. Skilled Military, I don't think this is going to happen because, like, Killmonger, again, once again in there, and it's a very awkward set of characters. I really don't think that Yelena and Red Guardian or Black Widow, I don't think this is really going to cover it. We've already talked about Uncanny X-Men here. Nick Fury's part of S.H.I.E.L.D. again. I don't think this is going to happen either. Vision's a standalone. He has that Avengers tag, but it's too broad. It's far too broad. And so this doesn't leave us with a lot of choices now that we're starting to get towards the top of my roster, actually. So yeah, we're kind of doubling down again on like X Factor, maybe Guardians, you know, and maybe Guardians is I don't know. It depends. You know, a lot of people don't have Guardians built to a huge degree, especially characters like Mantis, Drax. People have Gamora, of course, but like outside of that, unless you built for Nowhere Heist, which I did do actually, you know, they're not a very great tag at this stage, anyways. So this one could be interesting. Everyone else we've already talked about a little bit so far. Dark Hunters can't be it, right? It's already been called for, and I don't think that Red Guardian is going to be on there. Invisible, Fantastic Four. I don't think that this is going to be a thing here. And then Punisher again for the same reason I talked about Skill Military. Astonishing X-Men is super unlikely. The X-Men tag itself is super unlikely. I just don't think that's going to happen either. This doesn't leave a lot of choices, considering a lot of this is already in use, and a lot of the top end of my roster is already in use for the existing events. Inhumans, again, already called for. Heroes for, and there's very limited selection left. New Warriors? I don't think so, because I don't think they want to choose characters that they've already built. I'm on the fence with Infinity Watch. Again, I don't think that this is probably what they're not all heroes. Nebula is a villain, so for that reason, I think this is probably off the table. And they're really, really strong. Like you wouldn't even need to build Hero as Guardians if you had Infinity Watch, frankly. I just think that this is probably not likely. So I don't know. I'll give this like a weird red. I really don't think this is happening. But yeah, 4 of them are heroes. 1 of them is villain. And so I think any team that contains a villain, I think is really off the table, personally. So I don't think that that's happening. But the other ones are either in use, like Secret Avengers are 3 characters, but they're so powerful, and people have already, like these meta teams that people have already built up, I think those are off the table as well. And so as far as the characters who haven't been used heavily in the meta, I think that's what team number 3 is going to be all about. Just like in humans, we're kind of far off the meta. They've been away from it for a very long time. And that don't contain villains. I think that they don't want to give us like Eternals, and I'm just trying to think here of other characters. You know, we're getting towards the top of my roster, right? And there's just so much that like immediately you can dismiss because they would be too powerful. You know, like if I haven't mentioned already scrolling through, it's because I don't think it's likely. Symbiotes, villains. I just don't think any of these teams here are going to be possible that contain villains. They have to contain heroes. And so for that reason, I think it's like this. Guardians, Heroes for Hire, maybe, and even Heroes for Hire, a lot of people did invest in this, so I'm not really too sure about this one. Guardians could be. Because almost nobody like geared them except for really deep veterans, and even then probably didn't gear them super high. I don't have them super high other than the Nowhere Heist characters and Gamora. Uncanny X-Men, maybe, but there's more than 5 of them. Shadowland is 4, but I think this could be possible, and X-Factor could be possible as well. If I didn't list them here, it's because I just really didn't think that they were possible. Pimtech, again, I don't even know why it's on here, because they have villains and Wakandans. You'd be running a 4-man team, basically, which isn't outside of the realm of possibility. Ravagers, absolutely no. Power Armor, I don't think so. If they added that, the only useful character in there would be probably Falcon, OG Falcon, for his turn bar mechanics, and other than that, I just don't think anything else is possible. So here's what I'm thinking, is I'm thinking that Guardians are like... I think Guardians might be number 1. This is like my number 1 thought here. And then, I don't know, Shadowlands, X-Factor, Heroes for Hire at this point, and maybe Wakandans number 5. Like, these are my top 5 considerations at this stage. Basically, given that, you know, which characters are heroes and which characters are not. I think that for this Scourge event, we're going to get entirely set of hero characters, and for those who may have missed it from the beginning of the video, it's because the Hero as Guardians tag is not 1 tag, it's 2 tags. And so for it to work in an event situation, they all also have to have the hero tag. And if they don't, then it would not qualify properly, because then it would give you the other Asgardians, including Loki and Hela, which is not the case. They've made it clear that it's specifically the Hero Asgardians. And it's not 1 tag. The tag is not called Hero Asgardians. It's Hero and Asgardians, which means that for the rest of the teams, they also have to qualify under that hero tag. And so that's what I think. Let me know in the comments down below. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm not. We'll find out in due time, though, of course. And if I am right, then maybe I was onto something. So until next time, stay safe and healthy. I'll see you all later. Boilon signing out.